Yesterday, we started a new mini-series where we'll be taking a closer look at the art of the Force Awakens, examining alternate designs for First Order capital ships and starfighters. I find stuff like this super interesting because these art books not only show what could have been, but often what will eventually be. Today, I thought we'd cover one of my favorite scrapped ideas for the Force Awakens, something that would have not only changed the movie from an aesthetic sense, but which would have altered the plot on a major level. So as we all know, as with the second Death Star, one of the major obstacles preventing an all-out assault on Starkiller Base was the planet's impenetrable energy shield. In The Force Awakens, this is handled by having Han Solo and the good guys take advantage of a vulnerability in the shield, which is then disabled from inside Starkiller Base itself. However, one of the other plans was to have the Resistance literally push through the shields with a super weapon of their own, which would have perhaps been known as the Warhammer. It's unclear how close this idea was to actual inclusion in the film, but I distinctly remember rumors floating around the Star Wars leaks community of a Resistance super weapon known as the Sledgehammer. Now, obviously the name is a little off, but that combined with the fact that we know the concept art I'm showing you guys was from 2014 or later tells me that the Warhammer was probably seriously considered for this movie. Let's take a close look at the art together. And because I know some of you will ask, the reason there are Imperial Star Destroyers in these images rather than Resurgent Star Destroyers is A, because these assets would have originally been for internal use and it's really quick to just throw an existing model of a Star Destroyer up, and B, this probably would have been before the First Order Star Destroyer design was even finalized. That's another pun, by the way. Anyway, we see at least 3 designs for the Warhammer. I say 3 because I think the second and third on the top row are probably the same version from different perspectives. All are based on the same principle. The ship has a very large head, which is itself likely shielded, which is pushed through the shields by heavy engines. This doesn't destroy the shield itself, but rather creates an opening. So basically, you take a lot of power and durability, focus it in one place, and make a hole. Which is why the name Warhammer, or even Sledgehammer, would accurately describe how the vessel would work. The second image on the top row shows what the Warhammer, I believe, would look like having pierced the shield. Once through, fighters and perhaps even larger vessels would have been deployed from the ship's internal hangars. So bypassing the shields is really a 2-step process. First, you have to protect your giant capital ship, at least assuming that there are enemies outside of the shield. This one piece of concept art shows Star Destroyers only under the shield itself, while this other piece shows them outside, and this other one here shows the Sledgehammer actually driving through one, which would have been super cool. With the Warhammer through the shield, the launched fighters would have still had to survive any nearby enemies to actually attack their target. After that, you can have the proper battle of Starkiller Base as we see in the movie. I personally would have liked this within the film for a bunch of different reasons. It would have given us the chance to see the Resurgent Star Destroyer properly tested, albeit in a defensive role. A vessel of the Warhammer size, which by the way would have been tens to hundreds of kilometers, would also by necessity change the scale of the Resistance, which I think is a good thing, because there's no way that some small paramilitary group with a few dozen X-Wings would have a ship that large, much less the means to actually defend it. The Sledgehammer would have needed an escort fleet, and just would have needed the Resistance to be bigger from a logical standpoint. This is a change that would have been good. I also love the designs for this thing. The top 2 especially look straight off the cover of an old sci-fi pulp, which I think fits Star Wars well, especially Resistance or Rebel aesthetics. Seeing something just so different and so massive would have been really neat. The battle would have also had a real sense of verticality, with ships being launched from space and having to rush to the planet's surface. And I mean, Starkiller Base is already a really cool sci-fi design. I just imagine seeing the massive hangars of the super weapon open up with fighters streaming down towards the weapon's surface. Then you also have this thing in the midst of battle, perhaps on fire, serving as a visual backdrop for the other scenes of the movie. Having the Resistance fleet actually have to bypass Starkiller Base's shields would have also helped to differentiate the attack from that of the Death Star in A New Hope, which I know was a very common complaint. I will say it seems pretty clear that this idea at least somewhat inspired the Battle of Scarif in Rogue One. We've got a shield with a single entry point which stands between the good guys and their objective. shifts. We have a larger battle in space, which for some at least transitions to a battle at the surface. The Battle of Scarif has an awesome feeling of grandeur and speed, with the ships and the planets serving as a backdrop. I really would have liked to see something similar in The Force Awakens, which, in my opinion, really lacked great space scenes. That being said, there are also some obvious arguments against the inclusion of the super weapon. The first is, as I said, it's not in line with the size of the resistance that we see throughout the movie, so you have to either fundamentally change the faction or somehow downsize the attack that takes place on the shields, and the film does the latter. I think there were also issues of super weapon fatigue in Star Wars movies, and maybe the battle just didn't work or wouldn't have looked good from an FX standpoint. I don't know. Without the Millennium Falcon jumping through Starkiller Base's shields, the film would have also had to find a different way to reunite the characters of Finn, Han, and Rey, but I think that would have been relatively easy to do. Another question is, would the Warhammer have made sense within the lore? The answer to that is yeah, I think so. Planetary shields exist in both Star Wars Legends and canon, and are usually shown to have a physical aspect. There are some exceptions to this, like the Death Star, which has a magnetic field only, but everything from Coruscant during the X-Wing novels to the Death Star 2 in Return of the Jedi has a physical shield which prevents ships from passing through. The Warhammer is an interesting solution to this dilemma. Canon has made reference to a rumored Imperial super weapon, the Shield Breaker, which would pierce a shield with some sort of specialized energy weapon, and Legends has made it clear that a shield can be eventually depleted by a continued turbo laser barrage. Now this idea is different, but even if we were to say that it had to fit within Star Wars Legends canon, I don't see any reason why it couldn't. Shields aren't shown to vaporize ships on impact through energy, rather it's almost like running into a physical wall. Get something that's the right shape, has enough power behind it, and is durable, and sure, you can punch right through it. And not only is the mechanism at the very least passable from a lore standard, but it makes sense that the New Republic would have created something like this. Also, the design that sort of looks like the Avatar Titan from EVE Online also reminds me of Lando's shield ships from the Thrawn trilogy and Vector Prime. They block the sun rather than being used to bluntly smash through a shield, but I think it's a cool similarity. Also, having the Resistance Super Weapon or Dreadnought actually crush through a Star Destroyer would have been really, really cool. So, my question to you guys, which version of the attack on Starkiller Base do you prefer? The one we got, or the one involving the Warhammer? Also, do you think there's a chance that we might see the Warhammer in Episode 9? There were rumors going around a few weeks ago that they actually filmed scenes for the Warhammer sequence with Carrie Fisher, which of course would help her lack of presence in the movie, but again, that's just a rumor, and I haven't seen it substantiated in any way. Today's question of the day comes from Slimy Brooklyn, who asks, what breed is your dog? Where did you find it? Is it a boy or a girl? How old is it? And I almost didn't answer this one because I don't want to ruin things for you guys, but I've said a few times that the dog in the outro isn't actually mine. It's a meme someone made with the dog's movements synced to my music. They sent it to me and I placed it in my video. You can find a link to that creator, by the way, down in the description. That dog is a Shiba Inu, same as my avatar. I have no real reason why I chose this. When I first made this YouTube account, before I uploaded, it was just one of the pictures I had on my computer. That being said, I am a huge dog person, and I've got two dogs, Remy, who is a Corgi Yorkie mix, and Murphy, who is a Golden Doodle, or a Golden Retriever Poodle mix. They're both awesome. I post lots of pictures of them on my Twitter, which you can follow below. But yes, sorry to break the illusion for some of you. Thanks for asking. You guys can include your own questions with the hashtag AskEck down in the comment section. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.